Hey everyone, this is Chris Egger and welcome to another edition of Cannabis Capital's Pop Politics. I have the extreme pleasure today to have a returning visit from now candidate for California Governor, Jackie McGowan, a name that should resonate in our cannabis community quite strongly with everyone. She's been a political leader over the years on many of the issues involved from 2016's legalization forward. And she's here today to give us some insight into what's going on with her campaign and how life is. And Jackie, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
It's good to have you back. When we first talked and we had a really good discussion, the recall was not a shoe-in, right? They was still waiting to be qualified. You are now a candidate. Tell me exactly what it is that got you to actually take that step as a citizen and sign yourself up for the democratic process and to put yourself out there as a candidate for governor, and congratulations.
Thank you. It's definitely the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, and I'm not done yet. So I grew up in California, and I left right after high school, and I pursued a career on Wall Street. I started right out of high school at 18, working on the Chicago Board of Options Exchange, and I worked my way up, and I became a broker at the age of 24. I was the youngest broker on the floor, both male and female, and continued to work my way up through there, and then was transferred to New York's Wall Street, and I worked there for another 9 years. So I have 18 years experience in Wall Street, and I came back home after kind of burning out on Wall Street and then taking some time off. And when I got home, I was having severe side effects from pharmaceuticals. And the doctors told me that I could not come off of them, even though I was having seizures and blackouts and body pain. It was awful. So I was pretty miserable. And my father convinced me to try CBD as medicine. And within 6 months, I noticed a difference almost immediately just using CBD. And I slowly started to taper off of the pharmaceuticals. And once I was pharmaceutical free, I felt like I had escaped a pharmaceutical prison, and I was so grateful for it that I dove into activism. So on July 4th of 2014, I was getting signatures for a referendum in San Jose when they were attempting to regulate the market there, and they were trying to whittle it down from, at the time, I think it was, a couple hundred dispensaries, illegal dispensaries, gray market dispensaries. And they, were weeding it down, and they were, creating all these regulations, and we were trying to push back. And we were out gathering signatures under fireworks, and the 4th of July is my favorite holiday. And that was the day that I dove into,
that was your line in the sand moment as a citizen of your community. I love it.
Yeah. So it evolved into me consulting and then local lobbying. And I was working at a lobbying firm in Sacramento for a couple of years. I was doing local lobbying, they were doing state lobbying. And between the two of us, we were the most informed firm on cannabis issues. And I was doing so good at the local level that they wanted to promote me to become a state lobbyist.
Okay.
And I worked on Wall Street for 18 years. I go, and you guys are dirtier. I go, no, thank you.
Wow, right? Welcome to the world of politics.
So I declined, and I declined because I was being educated as to how our issue was used as a political football over and over and over again. I can remember attending hearings at the Capitol, and one of our bills would just get nuked, and I'd say, oh my gosh, what happened? What, and my coworker explained to me, many times throughout the years that I was there, that 2 assembly members had a fight in a previous committee, and they retaliated against each other in this committee on that bill, our bill.
They could, and because they could.
Right. And so once I woke up to that, it was like, whoa, right? So how are we ever expected to get anything passed when you don't know when one of these missiles is going to take out your legislation that has nothing to do with the bill or the content of it or the supporters or anything, right?
Or the necessity for it. right? Good policy should meet a need, right?
And then I realized, like, if they were doing that to our issue, that they were doing it to every issue, right? And so I kind of started to wake up to why, you know, it takes so long to move anything, to get any kind of reform in any issue, right? And I was growing more and more disgusted with the whole process. And, you know, my firm threw very expensive fundraisers for Gavin Newsom, and I attended a bunch of them, and I thought that he was going to, you know, support us, and I believed everything that he said on his campaign trail, you know, that he was going to protect small farmers and, you know, prohibit large scale cultivation until 2023. That's what he voted on later, you know. But he used our issue and our cause to get elected, and then dropped us. You know, he barely took meetings with us. I can remember one year in 2019, it was September, and I got a call from a Politico reporter, and he had filed a Freedom of Information Act, California Public Request, whatever it is. I guess it's the CPRA. He filed a CPRA on Newsom's schedule regarding cannabis issues. And at that time, that was 9 months into the year, he had only taken one 30-minute meeting on cannabis. So I'm not sure how you can, you know, call yourself an advocate and a proponent for, you know, intelligent regulations, whatever, and then not have meetings. How do we fix this if he's not listening to us, right? Yeah. So that was when I really just decided that, like, you know, wasn't a big fan anymore. And then things just continued to get worse. So fast forward to this year, and, you know, going into this year, I thought, oh my gosh, we were a $1 billion tax base in 2020 in a pandemic, and, you know, he's got to give us some relief now, right? And it still hasn't come. And then the budget trailer bill came out, and, you know, I'm a policy nerd, and I love studying that kind of stuff and debating it with all my policy friends. And I couldn't believe how offensive it was, you know, and budget trailer bills are a lot harder to push back on. So, because typically a budget trailer bill is what I like to call like a paella of leftover legislation. Mm-hmm. And so a governor can use that dish and keep adding to, like, that dish in the form of the budget, right? Because the budget has to pass, and add in things that he saw that he liked in legislation that didn't pass, right? This year, we had brand new legislation all over it, right? And this is where I got really concerned. You know, not only were these, were there just deadlines that are impossible for anyone to meet, they target the operator instead of the jurisdiction for not doing their job. So if the jurisdiction doesn't do their job in time, the licensee loses their license, right? And due process is something that I think it's about 84% of the licensees right now do not have, right? Which means if you have a stressful day and you're being inspected, and maybe you're short with one of your inspectors, they can yank your license and you have no recourse, right? And due process is in the Constitution. So why we're being treated so unfairly is just beyond me,
and
right?
That's what we're talking about is the, what do they call it? The non-permanent status that they've granted to the provisional status that they granted to the original kind of wave of permits that started being issued. And now they're trying to transition those. And they do, under the provisional statute, right, have the right to remove it without a hearing, without anything, correct?
And they have, you know, there was one lawsuit that, you know.
And by the way, I should say, when I say they, the Department of Cannabis Control, right?
The DCC now, which was the BCC when the lawsuit hit, was, you know, there was a lawsuit over no due process, and they won, but they settled. And because they settled, it didn't set precedent, and we didn't get due process out of it. So, but I still thought, like, well, if that lawsuit won, right? Like, clearly we should get that in the budget trailer, but we should get at least our constitutional rights as business owners, right? And then there was one part of the budget trailer bill that allows the new Department of Cannabis Control to purchase and possess banned assault weapons in the form of 50 caliber machine guns. Now, I'm pretty sure that 8 million people went to the polls in 2016 to end the drug war. And now Newsom is starting a new one. Like, why in the world does the agency that regulates the licensed industry that is $1 billion a year tax base for the state of California need assault weapons? And we're giving out social licenses to people that have had machine guns stuck in their faces. We're going to go stick new machine guns in new people's faces. Like, do we have a social equity plan for a decade from now for this part of the bill? And I was growing more and more angry, and that's when you and I talked last, and we did a podcast.
You came on as a guest when you were still doing your consulting work, and we were talking about the fate of how the recall would go. The signatures hadn't, I think, been verified or submitted, and I think it's important, it's for me to mention to the cannabis consumer who will be watching this and delving into the cannabis capital politics thought process, right? Which is that the governor's recall is a question first and foremost. Should the current governor be recalled from office? And if that happens, then a candidate will replace that governor. So you are a candidate on the Democratic ticket. Am I correct in saying that? And so you'll find your name on the ballot underneath the Democratic, as a Democrat, if, who knows what the order is. Have you seen the ballots yet?
The ballots are random in every county. And I thought that, like, I knew that there would be a lottery, like after I qualified, and I didn't know, like, in what order, like, the lottery would happen, but they couldn't go in alphabetical order, or it wouldn't be fair. So they drew names out of a hat, right? I thought they would do that at the state level and then pass that down to the local level. It's not the case at all. Each jurisdiction is doing their own thing. And so but almost every ballot I've seen, I am on the front page, like somewhere in the front page,
I'm trying to tell people that's how these things work, right? So it's a little bit different than the typical election. There'll be a number of candidates on there, but there's 2 questions. The first one has to be answered before the second one is a vote for the candidate of your choice. So in that note, Jackie, and thanks for giving us such a clear insight into how the process works up in Sacramento. That experience is something that I'm sure has made you valuable as your leadership and thought leadership as a consultant. But let me get into it, because these issues that affect our industry, I believe, also can be extrapolated into other areas of our states, kind of big burdens. This is pop politics. So we're going to talk about cannabis, right? And I think you and I have covered these topics before, but now that you're a candidate for governor, I think it's important for people to understand your mindset. We look at local control, high taxation, and social equity. Those are like kind of the 3 driving issues right now that you're hearing from both cannabis consumers, but professionals and business leaders also in the cannabis industry. And I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of general thought that can go into those areas, but specific to cannabis here, what are your thoughts right now? And as a candidate, what's meaningful to you to tell a cannabis consumer, constituent voter?
I think that the cannabis consumer needs to be aware that 5 years after we, celebrated something called legalization, we haven't actually gotten it. And like I actually didn't finish the rest of, like, why I ended up running. And
Good. Let's get into it. It's your interview. So,
July 3rd, I found out that a friend had committed suicide because his business was failing. And I was hearing about a lot of a significant uptick in suicides at that time. So really right now I'm hearing about a suicide a week. It's hard to say that it's definitely tied to a cannabis business failing. It could be COVID, it could be a lot of other things, but these are all people in the licensed industry. So there are 10,000 licenses spread out throughout the supply chain. However, there are only 7,000 to 8,000 businesses, because many businesses have multiple licenses, multiple cultivation licenses, or parts of the supply chain. And so there's 7,000 to 8,000 actual cannabis businesses, and they are ending their life at the rate of once a week right now. And so when it became personal, all of this is pretty personal because I'm a patient, but when it became personal that a friend ended his life, and I had just met with him like a few months before this, and we talked about depression and and ways, like, tools to use to get through it. And I was distraught because he was a prominent business owner in other areas, and he dabbled in cannabis, right? And so like he didn't even get an obituary. And when I found that out on July 3rd, I made the decision on July 4th, which just happened to be the 7-year anniversary of me becoming a cannabis advocate. Unintentionally on July 4th, I decided like I'm throwing my hat in the ring. And in 12 days, I launched a full campaign and qualified for governor. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And then like, my friend said, okay, what's next? And I go, oh my God, I don't know. Can I go to sleep? Oh shoot, I have to keep going. Okay, you know, so
it's a big step. So you know, when you do that, right, it elevates, you know, the state of California has a population of 40 million people, number one. It's a high state, you know, it's a high office in the state. It's the chief executive of the state of California. So yeah, I mean, I always say to people, kudos and hats off to anybody who participates at that level in the societal experiment called democratic ethics in the United States, right? Or democracy, not democratic, but democracy.
Yeah, I can't tell you how like sporadic the responses have been from people I've been friends with for a very long time. You know, some people are like, heck yeah, Jackie, way to go. You know, I can't tell you how many men said to me, damn, you have balls, over and over again, right? Like over and over and over again. And then there were friends that were like, oh my God, Jackie, what are you doing? Like disgusted with me, right? I'm not pro recall. I have never told anyone to recall him. I'm simply trying to be an insurance option in case he does get recalled, right? And, you know, I like to call what we're going through right now a political black swan event, okay? I was a stockbroker for 18 years, studied black swan events, I traded through black swan events, and this is a political black swan event. The news continues to report over and over again that someone can win this should he get recalled with only 1.8 million votes. So if I'm the most popular Democrat on the ticket, then I plan on being, you know, I win, right? 1.8 million votes. Like I'm going to get some of those just for being a Democrat. I'm going to get some of those for having cannabis by my name because I'm the only one on the ticket that does. And, you know, the rest I'm getting ready to hit the road to go earn.
And by the way, that's a really insightful thing when we start talking about it. You know, the recall, he'll be up for re-election next year, right? And the recall is a whole different environment. It was basically qualified with roughly 10 or 15% of the voters of California requesting it, right?
I think that's 12.
Right, and it's an entirety of a mail-in ballot too, right? So everyone will be getting their ballot at home. So who knows what turnout's going to be, right? A couple of things that we've talked about is, you know, the cannabis issue has not been part of the zeitgeist, you know, for a while now. You know, in 2016, we were the talk of the town, and a lot of people took the support and took, you know, they ingratiated the handshakes. And we as an industry, you know, I always tell people, I just believe the taxation model is unsustainable. And so when I was asking, you know, what your thoughts are, I mean, as the cannabis candidate and running for governor with cannabis next to your name, what are your thoughts about, you know, like I said, those key issues that I think extrapolate to the bigger part of the economy and thinking, at least in how people can get to know your policy thoughts. The idea that, you know, what are your thoughts on social equity? What are your thoughts on taxation and local control? Because I know those are key issues to California's cannabis voters.
Sure. So I'm going to start with taxation. Due to the fact that I already know the way the game works at the Capitol, once I become governor, I'm issuing executive orders, like 3 executive orders day one, lowering the excise tax to 10%. That's just a start. I'm going to do an LAO analysis of whether or not we can lower it even further after that. I'm eliminating the cultivation tax, and I'm declaring cannabis an agricultural product. And I think that those 3 that's where I'm going to start. I had to evolve my platform from a one issue platform into a full-blown platform. And this is day 41 of me making this decision. And so I have no problem going back and revisiting like how we do fix local control, but I think I have to get into the seat in order to assess it, you know, like correctly. And I don't have time to bother my my campaign strategists on any cannabis stuff anymore, because I had to learn fire and drought and climate change and homelessness and, you know, and every issue that is affecting every Californian right now. And it's been unbelievably educational. You don't know what you don't know, right? And I didn't know that I actually care about all people. I don't just care about cannabis people. So it's been challenging and like exhausting, but so rewarding and magical. And like, the universe has been supporting me so much that some days I'm like, I think the universe wants this more than I do.
You know what? You have to have that mindset, right? Put the blinders on it and look forward, right? That kind of vision. I just think it's important because, you do have a reputation and a name and a stature in the cannabis culture, right? And these issues, especially some of them, since Prop 64 was a voter citizen initiative, the change may happen. So I remember us talking early on about some potential cannabis legislation in 2022, right? Voter initiatives and stuff like that. And when we talk about local control and taxation and stuff, as a governor, do you think you would put something like that on the ballot, or ask the legislature to put something like that on the ballot again, some reform, so you could actually adjust it? Or do you think you could make change from the office?
Yeah, no, I think that I'm taking this project on with the intent of being governor for 1 year, and that's it. And so day one, I'm going to tell the lobbyists, you can go home. You're part of why this is all broken. So I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the people. And I start working for, the people on all kinds of issues like this. And, ultimately, I just have to figure out a way to force the jurisdictions that did vote yes on Prop 64, mandate that they have, a certain amount of time to have a certain amount of retail outlets, or they start to lose, funding for things. And I think that is, but I haven't had that completely vetted yet, but that's where my head's at. And I don't have time to revisit it. Like right now, I know I've vetted the 3 things that I've already proposed. And then what I want to do for social equity is, every time I have a conversation with either a social equity advocate or a social equity licensee, I ask this question. I say, do you think that social equity is a form of reparations caused by the war on drugs? And they say, absolutely, across the board. Everyone says yes, right? And then I say, so why do you think that 4 or 5 people that were harmed by the war on drugs in a certain jurisdiction should, get reparations, right? If we need to repair the harms that have been caused by the war on drugs, why aren't we giving everyone, an opportunity that has been and why are we forcing them into this impossible marketplace, right? Why don't we give tax credits for any kind of business if you've been harmed by the war on drugs? Make it easier for them to open up a barbershop or a nail salon or, a taco stand or something, right? And give them the assistance that they need, because we did, we had a very racist war on drugs go on. And so we can't, and we still sort of do, right? And we also can't repair harms if we're still harming people. And the police haven't stopped harming people. So it's like, this social equity program that we have, implemented in various jurisdictions, it's broken. And it's so broken that, Oakland was the first to lead the way. And I loved what they did with 3 years free rent, an incubator program, because those operators really would have struggled to get a location and get someone to rent to them cannabis, and being, a minority together, they would have been, charged even more than the cannabis industry is and taken advantage of if they were even given an opportunity to get started, right? And so I really liked that part. But 3 years free rent meant that, they then needed more assistance from Oakland. Oakland started giving out $50,000 grants, not grants, Carl, loans with interest that were due immediately, you get the loan and it has an interest rate and you have to start making payments immediately, right? And so these operators spent a good chunk of that 3 years getting operational and using that $50,000 loan to make a location compliant. And then, they start running out of runway. So what's happening right now is a lot of those operators are going under, and they've been sent to collections. Oakland sent the social equity people to collections agencies.
Wow.
Broken.
Really, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, too, no one saw, I think, how long it would take to actually get legalization rolled out. It has been a very confusing path, and not everyone has the burn rate that, you know, if we're going to use a Wall Street term, right? The burn rate that technology did in its early phases, right, was egregious, right? It was just a massive amount of money that people were willing to lose, but they got somewhere with it. But we constantly, I would say, Uber disrupted taxi cabs the way regulation disrupted cannabis. But unfortunately, we've tripled or quadrupled, you know, the amount of time it's going to take for regulation to catch up with advancements, right? And I, you know, and I mean it, Jackie, I want to stick close to you being the person talking here and asking questions that I think are relevant. You know, cannabis consumers, I've always told people, they're Republicans, they're Democrats, they're Libertarians, they're conservative, they're liberal conservatives. I consider myself a hybrid, right? I'm a very liberal, conservative liberal, right? You know what I mean? I don't know what else you can call me. But, you know, it's meaningful because how do you think cannabis translates your experience helping create a professional structure for cannabis? I mean, how do you think that translates to success? I mean, have you seen it work? Are you seeing it work right now? Is there anything that we can say that is positive about that? Because you're talking about extrapolating that experience in other areas. What's going right now for people, if anything? You know, who have you seen succeeding?
Businesses, small and large, are struggling the same, you know, and yeah, no, that's why you don't see all of the multi-state operators that operate in you know, many different states across the country operating here. Typically, they dip their toes into California and they dip right out. Like, whoa, you guys are broken and can't turn a profit, right? If a business can't turn a profit, they go under, right? So it's either they go under or they're getting bought out. And so we're probably going to see a lot of, like, you know, big roll-ups. But like I said, like, MSOs don't really want anything to do with California. And how dare us, like, you know, remove our rightful place, you know, at a global seat, you know, in a market that it's about to be an international one, right? Why aren't we leading the way? Instead, like, we're falling behind and we're handing all of that market share over to the illicit market. You know, it's mind-boggling, right? Overtaxation and overregulation aren't just affecting the cannabis industry; they are affecting small businesses and large businesses throughout California, and it has to stop. And so, one of my policy solutions, you know, for attracting more businesses or trying to keep businesses from fleeing California, you know, is that, like, anytime we're in a pandemic, like right now and last year, you know, we are still in a pandemic and businesses have had to, you know, pay more to make less, you know, right. And if we're raising regulations in one way and we're saying, you know, that you have to have all these new protocols, or you have to serve food outside, or, you know, have limited capacity inside, or, you know, take care of your employees to make sure that they have PPE and make sure your customers don't get sick. Anytime you are increasing regulations in one way, you have to lower them in another way. Small businesses all across this state typically operate on, you know, like 1% to 3% margins, and that's how they stay alive. If we're eating away at those margins, it doesn't matter how many loans you give to them. How can they pay it back if you just ate away their margins? And so we'd have to pause on the other, you know, other regulations. Tell OSHA, go home. Tell, you know, planning department, not now. Later, but just not now. Let these guys survive. You know, we are never going to get this economy going again until we take a holistic approach to all of it.
Yeah. I know that in Northern California, so maybe we'll speak to a little bit of the geographic separation amongst issues. In Northern California, it's really a rural agribusiness dialogue that's going on, right? In terms of cultivation and farming and manufacturing and processing, right? And that's really where the state's market. You know, how would people know that you understand their issues up there? If we could have a second just to touch base on what the Northern California cannabis community needs to hear from candidate Jackie McGowan.
I confused your question with regular ag, so can you repeat it?
Well, meaningfully. So Northern California, it's more of a rural agribusiness kind of an issue set, right? And that populates California as a state, right? So I'm trying to extrapolate an issue. But, what are your thoughts about, how would they know that their issues, right? So if I'm in Humboldt County, if I'm in Mendocino County, I think differently than a cultivator in Adelanto, because I'll dip into Southern California, and I know we're going to talk about you coming down here next week. But, meaningfully, what would you be saying if you were at a campaign appearance right now in Northern California that might be a little different than more specific to the issues that are faced in that community?
I would say that, the $100 million that this administration donated to local jurisdictions to help them, process applications from temporary into, annuals, it was a waste of money. It was a giant waste. I would rather see that 100 million thrown at the federal government, and hired. I'd rather see California hiring their own federal lobbyists to get federal legalization happening quicker, right? And that would be a way better use of that money. Or even, some tax relief maybe to all of the operators. We didn't get anything. We got nothing. Oh, wait. They gave us trade samples.
Right.
Wow. Thanks for letting us give away cannabis and our products to consumers so they can try it before they buy it. That was our big win this year, the entire year. Right. Wow. And what I would say to anyone up in any area that has a lot of licensees in the rural areas, I would say that first, I'm going to start with, declaring cannabis an agricultural product, because I think that will take some of the pressure off at the local level. And then I would have to start doing some serious, LAO analysis into what will work. How can we make this process, simpler and streamline it? We can't do this whole dual licensing process. It's pretty redundant. At this point, I'm not sure what the state is even doing. So why are they doing it? Why aren't we allowing local jurisdictions to decide who's legal and who isn't? Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's where I'd start, and then I would be open to any kind of outside the box, solutions to that. Like, I ride for my industry, and it's time that they ride for me.
Right. Now, and down here in Southern California, you'll be coming back. I would say the issues that face retail, and that's where that local control discussion comes in, and the high rate of taxation again, to where they're almost taxing the illicit market into thriving status, right? Because the higher the taxes at the retail level, but here in Southern California, we don't have the CEQA challenges oftentimes that you're seeing in the Central Coast and in Northern California, because it's all contained indoors, urban environment, indoor cultivation technique, right? And then secondly, this is where the majority of the state's population is. So you're coming down here. So tell us first and foremost what your upcoming event is. I think you have some sort of appearances, or at least you'll be making some rounds. And then what would you be saying in that audience, in that room? So if you came to Southern California and you're talking to a cannabis consumer in the retail space, in the retail environment, and actually shaking hands, what would be your message?
My message would be, that we didn't get what we voted for in Prop 64. And it's time that the will of the people was implemented properly, right? And voting for me means your medicine's going to cost less real soon, right? We'll lower those taxes, lower the barriers to entry, and start to incentivize local jurisdictions to get some retail, up and running. And I'm not exactly sure how that is all going to work, but I know that I'll figure it out. I was very surprised when just throwing solutions at my campaign strategy company, and they would come back and say, yes, Jackie, you could do that. I'm like, wow. I mean, okay, what about this? Yes, you can do that too. Okay, cool. I would love to be able to spend more time on this, but I can't win if I do. I have to go become, evolve every day into a full-blown candidate and win the hearts and minds of everyone, not just cannabis people. And so that's where I'm at right now. I don't have the brain power or another minute of the day right now to assess any other solutions for the cannabis industry. They just need to know that day one, I ride for my industry. Day one, I start to fix this. And day two, I start to throw, things at the LAO, and then I make them look into other solutions. And if that doesn't work, then like that 2022 ballot, let's do it,
But, and so you said, basically you're running in this election because you're worried that there might be a massive transition, right? Where, everything changes. So you want to be there as that insurance. Will you run for office in 2022, do you think? Or would you be like to get a step back from this now that you've been a candidate and been part of this process? Do you see yourself doing it again?
I have been completely and forever changed by this process. And, a pickle can't go back to being a cucumber. Right. And I'm a politician now. When you Google me, it comes up politician. And I was like, it just came up the other day. And I was like, oh, you guys, like, I haven't even been elected yet. And it says I'm a politician and it says, like, whoa. Google is picking up on my name and politics with the Democratic Party. And that blew me away. Right. And I was already telling people, I'm a politician now. I'm not sure. I'm absolutely running again. I will be on that ticket in 2022 should I not make it in this round, but I'm pretty sure that we could do this.
All right, cool. And so you're coming to Southern California. How can people find your campaign online, right? If they want to delve into what you're talking about, the policy positions you're creating, that would be something I think would be good for you to get out. And then tell us a little bit about your schedule in Southern California upcoming.
I wish I could. I haven't had a chance to even look more than 2 days out right now. Every day I'm drinking water from a fire hose. I'm like, wow, did I really just get through all of that? Okay, here, and then get up and do it all over again, So right now I know that I'm heading down south. I know that I will be in Inglewood on Sunday for a rooftop party where they are blocking off the streets and having street vendors and music and bands and rappers playing music up top. And I'm going to get up there and I'm going to go win the hearts and minds of people and start to get some votes. Right. And after that, I'll go anywhere that anyone wants to throw a fundraiser for me, and you can find my website at JackieForGov.org. That is JACKIE, the number 4, ORG, or GOV.org. Sorry. That's my website. My policy positions have been uploaded, not all of them yet, but every day we just keep putting more and more out. I'm going to start posting my endorsements. I have a ton of endorsements that I haven't even had time to, put up. So
like you said, I'm not trying to get you to solely focus on cannabis, but I do call this show Pop Politics for a reason. And really, it gave me liberty and freedom to not, to be able to say Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, decline to state, hybrid, whatever you want to call yourself in the show. We all have to have that passion for cannabis, right? It's really why Pop Politics came to being. Although, I may have some people on a later date that are opposed to the industry. I think it's one of the few growth industries in California that's left, right? It's one of the few industries that I've seen try to grow itself into that best practice part of the community, and I think we serve as a good example of citizenship in this in the state of California. I think we've contributed a lot. The fact that Santa Ana's youth programs are substantially funded by cannabis revenue, but I think the issues need to be addressed because we need to create a sustainable industry. So I don't mean to drain you, but however, I am proud of you and I am grateful for the opportunity to have this time today. So one more time, it's Jackie at Jackie for Governor. Do the website address because I want people to be able to find you.
JackieForGov.org. JACKIE, the number 4, GOV.org. Okay. And I want to end with, if we're wrapping up, I really want to end with this.
I was going to get there. I was going to say, I always ask the guests, let me do it. Is there anything that I didn't let you say or wasn't asked as a question that you want to say? 100%. Looking forward to hearing it. And I'm going to be an active listener again.
Okay. So what people don't understand about me, is that I'm very passionate about this cause and cannabis, and this is pop politics, and I've just recently started telling this story because it's the truth. And I actually became an advocate for cannabis at the age of 8. And at that time I was living in Dixon in Yolo County. I was in 2nd grade, and I was also an entrepreneur at the age of 8. And during the summer, I would take my little red wagon and I would fill it with ice and soda, and I would go sell it at construction sites. And I had saved up $17. And so my mom at that time was 9 months pregnant with my brother. She was due in 2 weeks. And she was taking such hits from my abusive father. And And she was just getting beaten, you know, over and over and over again. And I really wanted that to stop, and I wanted my brother to come out okay, you know. And so I said, hey mom, how much does pot cost? And she freaked out. What, you're 8 years old, why are you asking me how much drugs cost? You know, are you smoking drugs? I was like, mom, no, relax. I said, I just noticed that when dad smokes that stuff, he doesn't hit you like he does when he drinks alcohol. And I wanted to buy him some, so I just wanted her to tell me how much it was. And so this is who I am. Like, I'm running for office as my authentic self. And I had to fight my advisors like tooth and nail on certain issues to do that. And I said, I will not be boxed in. I will not be told I have to be, you know, a certain way on a certain, like, you know, policy solution. I won't. You won't do it to me. And so who gets to run for office as their authentic self? I'm like, I do. I'm doing it.
I think
and that's
is what we've gotten from today, and I appreciate it. That's a really hard story to process lightly.
It took me a long time just to, you know, even tell a friend, you know, that was my reality. And, you know, we weren't allowed to talk about that kind of stuff, but that was the truth. I wanted to buy my dad some weed at the age of 8. I still believed in Santa Claus, but I was smart enough to figure out that when he smoked that, he didn't beat my mom.
Well, you know, the Washington, D.C. police chief, she was very famous for having said that very few, if none of her incident reports from domestic abuse and violence emanated with a catalyst being the consumption of cannabis, almost exclusively the consumption of alcohol and other drugs. So, you know, on that note, and I mean it, Jackie, that may not be all you have to say. That's a really moving story. It's hard to come back to you know, have anything, but thanks for sharing it. Is there anything else you want to say that you know, because the questions were, you know, a little heavy loaded towards pop politics, but, you know, this is your time and your people are who our audience is. So.
Yeah, I really need some small donations. I don't need a lot to win this. I don't, you know, and we've done the math on how to win, and, you know, $800,000 is probably enough to make it. And right now I've raised $30,000, right? And I've got bills to pay, and everyone is just riding for me and putting the bills off. And so I need fundraisers, and I need small donations, and I need, you know, I need just a little bit of money to keep this going. You know, I don't need 20 million to win this. And that's what people keep saying. And I would need that if I was going to go play the big game. And right, like most of everyone we know, they're not watching the news anymore. They can't handle another thing, you know, so they're watching social media. So I just need to go own social media, get on some radio, you know, like I can do this for very little money.
Okay, cool. Well, listen, I look forward to getting some updates from you when you're down. Maybe I'll come in person to come see you and to listen to your message in person. And in the meantime, you know that you have a home here at Cannabis Capital. If you have anything that you think is meaningful, you want to share again, you'll get back to us. Okay. And I appreciate you.
Awesome.
I reached out. I really think it's important that people who are cannabis consumers realize that we are thought leaders and we're smart people, and we are capable of running for governor, and we are capable of being insightful to our fellow citizens on how to run, you know, a good business in a great state. So congratulations and kudos, and thank you for the time today.
One last thing, I just want to say, clearly cannabis is a performance enhancing drug because I qualified for governor in 12 days, and then I've relaunched my campaign twice inside of that. Like, this is 41 days of nonstop drinking water from a fire hose. So after this story is told, I'm pretty sure that lazy stoner like image, you know, is going to go away, because cannabis is getting me through this.
Yeah, we've developed an industry that did exist in its totally different incarnation and completely exists in a new incarnation in the past decade, right? Who else has done that besides technology? And the technology globally is considered the smartest people on earth, and almost everyone, they used to make jokes about it. We've been supporting your burn rate in the cannabis industry for years, right? That's the technology, right? We've been supporting your burn rate for years here in our offices as we chart the course of technology's advancement. We could talk like that all day. Obviously, Jackie, I'm very, very happy for you to be moving forward on this path, and best of success. And I will look forward, like I said, to seeing you in Southern California in person.
See you on Sunday.
Take care.
Thanks.
Signing off.